Welcome to the Walk Through Grief with Grace podcast, a space for human hearts to gather around stories of loss and love. I'm Jen Cormier, your grief guide and host. It is my honor to have you join us through this sacred act of listening. May you receive something here that you need, something that is healing and calls forth your compassionate heart. We are so glad you're here. So, welcome. Today, I have a really special guest with me. I'm really excited to talk to Ian McCartor. He's here with us today, and I'm so excited to share your background, Ian, because you've got such an eclectic mix of nursing, hospice nursing, and the arts that you've woven into your path. So, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah. So before we begin, I want to just tell you a little bit about Ian. He is a registered nurse and a grief counselor as well, who specializes in hospice and bereavement care. He's a lifelong visual artist with a passion for merging art and healing, which is, we have that in common, you and I, merging the arts and healing. His signature initiative, which is arisen recently, is called the Ash Rose Project, and this offers a deeply meaningful way to transform grief into beauty. And through the creation of custom artworks, he incorporates the cremation ashes of beloveds, and the loved ones get to participate in an experience of reflection, healing, and renewal in this artistic process. So I can't wait for you to tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's such an honor to have found this work over the years and it started from those impressions with hospice, coming in with an artist's eye into a completely different field was looking back, one of life's little surprises to find your destiny and your purpose and how to weave your passion into service, really. I think that's kind of what we're all looking for. So excited to share about it.
Yeah, it's so great because I think people that are listening might be able to relate to kind of compartmentalizing pieces of our lives. Like we have our job, and then we're an artist over here. We have these different inclinations, and it can be, or it can feel, I know for me it has in the past, and for many people, like a challenge. How do I honor all these parts of myself? How do I weave them together in a good way?
Mhm.
And it sounds like that's a place that you've arrived at where you feel like it's all landed and you're really living your life's work.
Yeah, it's a process of many years, there's a lot of behind the scenes labor and experimentation and surrender to just trusting the trail and a lot of sacrifice as well, it's been interesting to bring a child into this world at the exact same time of defining this new chapter of this work and allowing that to really be an offering and an intention that really just kind of consolidates the uh, the intention that much more. It's like I'm not just doing it for me and the people I'm serving. It's like this new bloom in this family that I want to really nurture in an authentic way. And I did enjoy nursing work to an extent. It was really beautiful to engage with people on such intimate grounds. I'll never forget those years. And then it just became a bit of like a time and spiritual conflict to have to invest fully into the medical infrastructure of actually doing the nurse work and the hours and it's certain responsibilities that just take most of your day and then doing the arts projects on the side and kind of feeling torn because the arts were so effective in serving people in a different way and fulfilling a very like deep spiritual and creative need that a lot of people crave in those environments. And then, just having to stretch myself kind of thin over those days. And 2020 was the year where a lot of those things came to be. And I started doing the ash artwork for hospice patients and some other people that were involved in that. And then I was doing the legacy songwriting as well, which I'm not doing quite as much anymore, but I did finish a book that encompasses a lot of those lessons and stories and really special songs. Um, and so there was the production of that and then full-time hospice nursing too. And and I had just met my now wife
Mhm.
um, in a very different light. We'd known each other for a decade, but then we fell in love that year too. So it was just like all this stuff. And at the end of 2020, I felt very taxed in some ways. You know, like the arts had been really helpful in sustaining my um, my heart through all that loss. And you know, you just befriend these people
Mhm.
while engaging in that way, where it's not just a transaction of a professional. You know, I really wanted to help them explore their wisdom and their sense of purpose in those last chapters and connecting that with their family, who then would be navigating beyond that loss. And many of them I'm friends with to this day. So after that whole year of just doing that and nothing but that, it really took a toll. And I feel I had to make some room.
Mhm.
And so I'm still licensed as a nurse, but I haven't practiced since the end of 2020.
Mhm.
And for the last several years, just devoted everything to the artwork and the grief counseling change in trajectory. And I'm really glad. It's been a really beautiful road.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got a background, you work in music and in visual arts, both, right? And most recently, starting, I guess 4 years ago, how did this come to be? Would you tell us about the conception? So some folks might be like, did I hear that right? He's using people's
Right.
ashes, like
Mhm.
their cremation ashes, to create a visual artistic portrait of
Right.
them as a person for their families.
Right.
Is that correct? And so just tell us, how did that come to be, the first one? Or will you tell us the origin story of that?
Yeah. Yeah. It was born from the metaphor of the songwriting. You know, it was the essentially the intention of taking the essence of something that had changed or was lost at a certain period of time, like a life, and taking what's left and creating something new. And I feel like I was observing that in every person that I met who took on that work within themselves to embody a part of who that person was. And it assures that they still are in them. And so it was nice to take music so easily. You know, it's just I had the guitar and I'd sit down and I'd listen to them and I'd take a bunch of notes and I'm like, just tell me your story and I'll create a song that will then exist forever. You know, it was this pretty cool immortal quality that art brings to this, and you know, stay in the family for indefinite generations, you know, as long as they nurture that and keep that memory alive. And then my mom had this idea actually. She's just like, you know, you've also done visual artwork, Ian, since before music. And you know, it just kind of was always this love of mine that I always just did. And I was just really enamored in the taking of something like a blank sheet of paper. It
Yeah.
just starts completely open. And then through craft and vision and intention, create something that evokes the sense of life or a sense of meaning. And through the practice of the craft and, you know, realism and just bringing technique to support that intention, um, my mom suggested, she's like, well, how could you serve to this degree with art? And serving in that degree with music forever changed the context of why I did music. You know, it's like I did commercial music for a while, and I took kind of the pop um, contemporary train for a little while, and you know, in the industry, and And it was really nice and fun, but that sense of meaning was lacking for me personally. And once I started serving people with music in hospice to preserve them and celebrate them and use music as a vehicle of healing, there's no turning back. I can't do anything else. Everything else is just like, okay, it's fun. And so with art, it was wonderful that my mom had that insight. And she's like, what if you took the essence of someone's being,
Mhm.
literally, and constructed and just created this new representation of what was and what is and will be?
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. When I heard that suggestion, it was like that major aha light bulb was just like, yep, this is exactly what you were waiting for this whole time.
Yeah.
And really that's just the pinnacle of meaning for me with a tangible art form like that. And so I put it out there to some friends. Um, I I opened that up to some hospice patients that were craving something tangible, that were open to exploring that. And so the first ones were done for my hospice patients back in 2020. And it was just surreal, those first moments of receiving those ashes with that hope and that trust. And I mean, the honor of participating in that is profound for me, to be entrusted with such a precious material. As far as physical material, it doesn't get much more precious than that, right? We have gold and silver and all these things, but the essence of that person that you've lost and love still, to surrender that with the intention of beauty to be created was life-changing for me. And so it's grown a lot since then, it's been one leads to another and one leads to another, and how each artwork becomes an icon and a beacon for others is something that has been so beautiful to watch through these years. And how, some people it's a little striking and they're just like, what? It's like it's too much in some for some palettes.
Yeah.
Um, but for m most these days, at least, it really strikes a chord with people in a very unique way, because I think in a world where we're becoming so technologically driven, it's all about efficiency, and um, it kind of creates this shallowness to a lot of those interactions, or a coldness. Um, it's been really wonderful to nurture that intimacy and human to human relationship to create something absolutely tangible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it has a special place where the world is right now, and I'm seeing that more with, how we're expanding it this year, and deepening the counseling services within the Ashros project, and how, um, to make it a bit more structured as a community element as well, which is, I think, very key. It's how the art is a symbol of that legacy of that person, and also what that grieving individual then carries with them beyond the loss, and how then to allow that to be a platform of connection to others. And for those that have received the portraits in the past, it's wonderful to hear how it sparks conversations that wouldn't have really come about otherwise. They can talk about the loss, and that life in from a different perspective now, and it fosters the celebration a
Yeah.
bit more intentionally. And the release of what once was, not clinging to the image of the past, but allowing them to really embody the potential for that new discovery.
Hmm.
And once you surrender to that, um, to allow for those new opportunities to come and greet you and teach you and reveal the love that remains.
Yeah. Yeah. So, uh, I hear that there's, some people that are very willing, and that it's such an honor for you to receive, like
Sure.
this handing over of somebody's beloved loved one's remains for you to then take a blank piece of paper and create some piece of beauty, a portrait, something that feels like it's meaningful and can then help them connect more deeply with with community around that piece, around that creation. um,
Hmm.
and you've got some people that jump right in and are very willing, and then I hear that there are probably some people that are like, whoa, what are you doing? Because there's so many, when people think about death, often the mainstream is, you know are you going to be buried or are you going to be cremated? Okay. And
Right.
then what you're going to either put the cremains on your, fireplace mantle or in a shoebox, or you're going to go spread the person somewhere
Hmm.
that's meaningful in the ocean or at their favorite, forest or, something like that. Right.
Right.
Um, and that seems like the sort of mainstream idea of those are the options for death: burial, cremation. Here's what you do with the cremains.
Right.
That being said, there is a kind of creative history around cremation of, you know, quite a while ago, making jewelry out of cremains,
Hmm.
or, there are different cultural things that happen with the remains of a person.
Hmm.
Um, and this is the first I'm hearing of those ashes actually turning into, art on a page that's to be framed and, hung in the home, kind of art. Would you just tell us a little bit about the actual process, like how you went through, you know, here are the kind of crushed bones of a person, and how does that turn into like kind of a charcoal substance? Do you mix it with some kind of, how does it um work, like, as for those of us that are sort of technically or artistically inclined, like what
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first received the ashes, I hadn't really ever seen ashes before. It was, you know, I had family members that had cremated, but I never saw the actual remains. And so when I first received them, I was like, okay, like my artist mind was working. Like, how can I adhere this in some way to paper to create a medium?
Yeah.
And so I started combining the ashes with the charcoal powder, and I use a mortar and pestle, and I actually blend it really finely
Okay.
so that it becomes this really fine dust. And then I treat it more like a painting, and so I use a brush to paint the tone onto the canvas. And I use kind of a like a thick cotton paper, so it really holds the medium nicely. And then in a lot of cases, especially more recently this past year, I've used adhesive to actually put the actual ash onto the paper without it being blended with the charcoal. So I'll use the charcoal medium and accent certain things with the actual ashes. And and that was interesting because I think intentionally, maybe subconsciously, kind of hidden the ashes in the charcoal medium so that when you look at it, you just see the tone and you don't see the texture of the ash and look at it and be like, oh, what's that? Is that ash? But instead, it was more like subtle and inside
Mhm.
the painting. Um, and then I had one person who had asked me to do three portraits, one for him, his mother, and his brother of his father's ashes. And he had this photograph where he's holding this drink at the like a tavern that he was a bartender at for years and years and years. And he's like, I want that to be the thing. And like this may be a weird question, but how much of the ashes do you use? And I'm like, well, I typically only need the tiniest little bit, like a
Mhm.
teaspoon most of the time. And he's like, huh. So can you see the ashes on the paper? And I'm like, no, it's within the medium, so it's more of a context-based
Mhm.
situation. And he's like, could I see the ashes in this piece? He's like, can you actually find a way to put it on there to where when I see it, I can see that's my father's ashes.
Mm, mhm,
Undeniable.
mhm.
And so I thought about it and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so and you can see this image on the gallery on the website, but he's standing there holding this drink almost as like a welcome, and there's this um, opening behind him, which was like the arc of the bar of the tavern, but I just simplified it and allowed it to be more like a doorway. And then on the structure of the wall, I adhered the ash so it almost looks like a stucco or like a terracotta kind of texture, and it came out really great. And it was exactly what they were looking for. And so it just really depends on the recipient's intentions. You know, do they want something more evocative or forefront, or do they want something more subtle and subdued and maybe more whispered?
Yeah.
And a lot of that's discussed in the initial conversation. When I start this work with somebody, we explore all those elements and then to discuss the subject matter. You know, some people really want an iconic photo of them in their prime. And then
Hmm.
some people want them in a different season of life, as you know, maybe the grandchildren remembered them when they were much older than the children when they remembered them in their 30s, you know.
Yeah.
And then some people want to explore something beyond the human form. And this is where, you know, the grief counselor in me is just like, yes, okay, keep going in that direction because they're acknowledging their life, but they're opening themselves up to the love and the life of the present and discovering them in different ways and allowing that relationship to continue presently and not so much in the past. I think they both have their place, but it's very special to see someone who um, requests something more symbolic, like the rose,
Hmm.
or another kind of flower that has a certain significance, or an animal that carries a little message for them. You know, a lot of people speak of the hummingbird and the dragonfly and the butterfly and how that's a really common little messenger for
Yeah.
people. And I like to encourage that. I think that finding that intimacy is so important and allowing that presence to visit often in the present time and allowing that to continue the relationship and that the bond,
Yeah.
the ongoing bond. I think that's as much as you can be reminded of that, the better. And it's been lovely to hear how these portraits are such a reminder of that. And it's it's such a presence in the home. You know, it's
Hmm.
we have so many screens with so many changing things and so many just pixels and light, you know. They have this portrait that's actually made of that person that evokes a very clear message of, you know, essentially meditation and to consider their own brevity. You know, that's another beautiful, difficult reminder for most of us, you know, that we too will become this ash that we see and to really embrace that reality as settling into the preciousness of life and the gift of being able to carry that torch forward and truly and live with that much more intention and reverence and gratitude.
Mm.
So yeah, it holds a lot of benefits, I guess you could say, and personally for me too. Like I love to share also just how this has changed my life as an artist and to be able to continuously take this reality in. You know, it's definitely shaped my life's view on why I'm here and the fragility of it all and just the humility of being alive and being alive today and being able to serve today and especially in this way, you know, this is, you know, a dream job for for me. You know, this is something I wouldn't have imagined a number of years ago. You know, that's the importance of just maintaining the journey. But you know, just to be able to serve and help people heal and celebrate love and acknowledge the reality of pain and death and opening to new possibilities based on the imagination. You know, it's what we can conceive and believe, what's the saying? We can achieve. And it's true. It's to allow that art of life to come forward in people, and for them to look back on the years and revel in what they had no idea was going to happen, but they chose to stay open to it and manifest so many new chapters that they had no idea what they were in for. And the key is the opening and the willingness to bloom and to persevere into light from darkness, because I've seen the other way as well, how it can close you and you can withdraw and suffer.
Mhm.
And I've seen people die like that, and it's true tragedy to me, because it's either they lacked support or that was just, the best they were able to do with the the materials that they had. And it's been very encouraging to see how other people are empowered by being able to reach out to others in this way and allowing that pain to become compassion
Mhm.
and encourage that rising and and the ongoing effort. It doesn't just disappear. The pain of loss doesn't just vanish,
Yeah,
but it changes.
yeah. But it
And
changed, and I think that that transformation you're talking about, if they're able to, when you bring in beauty and you bring in creation and you bring in storytelling, um, there's such a power in making a new meaning,
hmm
and keeping this connection. And I'm guessing that you've seen this. Feels really fundamental to me that the people that you're talking about that just sort of wither, and the tragedy of not being able to move through the grief process and get support and get to the other side and make meaning, and be able to start again.
hmm
This the folks that wither and collapse. I think one commonality I see between those two groups is the capacity to keep that connection to the love that they had for that person and keep a connection in some way. And some people will talk about, I my family, even though they weren't into this at first, we met a medium and then we started making a connection across the veil to my brother or my father, whoever. And now we feel like they're still there in spirit somehow. We can still be connected on the day to day. And I see signs and license plates and this,
hmm
right?
hmm
And then it feels like, in a way, this person's not gone. They're not here in this physical body, but I know their essence is still here. I know I can keep a connection, and that way their love still flows,
hmm
right? And whatever their background, their spirituality, their religion, everyone has different belief system, but the suffering, the people who suffer the most, I see them closing down. There was a river of love that went specifically to a person, and
hmm
now when that person physically dies, that river just gets dammed up, and
hmm
then there's no place for that to go. And the beauty of what you're doing, it's offering a new channel, to reflect and make meaning and create some honoring and some beauty with this piece of art, so they can remember, this love, and keep sharing the stories and have it be a platform for more sharing whenever someone walks in the house, right? So that it's not there's an opening and there's that love continuing. So it's just a beautiful, it's a really inspiring way to keep the memories of that person, alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting just what you said, the element of the medium.
Mm.
That's a little play on words and in my pocket too. It's like you have this person that acts as a door to that communication. And for some who've received this artwork, they say that medium of art acts as a medium for that reflection and that bridge. And people talk to their loved ones through these portraits, and And what, I mean, just the mystery of all that is beyond me, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the little meager understanding of this guy, you know, I try to be very humble and open to those things, of course. And I think that that context of what this art represents to people, just given what it's made of, allows for um, that presence to be that much more accessible.
Mhm.
You know, because when they sit and they see it, it just evokes something really, um, really rich,
Mhm.
very deep,
Yeah.
and it's really wonderful, you know, to have that in in these times today, you know, where it's I keep coming back to just the distractions of modern life and how it just beckons you to move on, get distracted, you know, turn your eyes to something that has nothing to do with all that you were struggling with. You know, here's something new. Here's a new solution that may or may not be relevant or healthy, and to help people acknowledge the work that needs to be done and fully commit to change.
Mhm.
It's it's great. You
Yeah.
know, I think the openness to change, like you said, the redirection of that river instead of stagnating it into a swamp, you know, and then it ends up poisoning you with
Mhm.
sorrow and despair. To be able to redirect that current to life again is so important. And it's, of course, everyone's own unique journey, but there's common themes, you know, and it's reaching out to others is huge. And, um, you know, just in regards to the program, I'm really excited to offer a gathering as like an annual aspect of the Ash Rose project because I've had opportunities where people have connected over their artwork before, and it's just like this instant I see you.
Mhm.
And there's this instant affinity for each other given the fact that they've both taken steps in that similar direction, but it looks different. But it's mutually celebrated at that point. And so the idea is that, you know, through the year, we'll work with a certain number of people, maybe at least 12. My goal is at least one a month.
Mhm.
And then at the end of the year to have a really lovely curated gallery setting where people can come and everyone brings their art and it's all placed in just a very beautiful setting and everyone can come and meet each other
Mhm.
and have an opportunity to share with everyone in attendance just a bit of that person and bring them back into the room again. And just the power of that is so important. Just to speak of that love and that person in a shared environment is so powerful, and it really is so simple, but it's often disregarded. You know, people don't want to really bring up, or there's not an opportunity that feels appropriate for them to be able to share this ongoing love and these lessons that continue to dwell in them and grow in them.
Right.
So I'm hopeful that this event will just be these beautiful sparks that continue to bring a sense of meaning and this ongoing participation through all the years, you know, in 5 years, just to think like if there's 100 participants in 5 years, just what the energy of that gallery will be with 100 of these pieces and people and their families and the community and all the donors that are part of the nonprofit and just all that connection of how together we're witnessing each other and reaching out to people that are looking for solutions, maybe creative solutions that they've tried everything in the book and then this is what works. And that's been the case for several. You know, there's that creative quality is so important for some people.
Yes, it is. Because sometimes we think, okay, it's just that we've got talk therapy or something that's very cerebral, and we
Hmm.
have our one chance at a memorial service or a funeral
Yeah,
to
and
be
that's it
there.
for a lot of
And
people.
then
Yeah.
for a lot of people, it's that's it. They don't have a platform, a stage to really share their love for their beloved. So what I'm seeing that's so special about what you're doing is, you're letting that stage, continue through the process of creating this art. And then I love this communal gathering, of showing all of this art once a year. I think that is brilliant. And if someone's listening and they either want to become a donor to your nonprofit, or they have someone that's passed in their life and they've got ashes that are sitting there, and they go, oh my gosh, I would love a portrait
Mhm.
of my husband, or partner or child or whatever, and
Mhm.
they would love to be one of these next dozen folks that you're creating art for this year. How would they best reach out to you, and what would the process be? Would it just be the art, or would there be also be a potential of connecting with some grief counseling? What does that look like for someone that might reach out to you?
Yeah, the ashrose.org has all the information of contact info and
Right.
examples and some really beautiful written testimonies of people who've done the work
Mhm.
already and really describe how it's been impactful for them and how the process of um, not only the creation of the artwork, but the dialogue and um, the the structure of assimilating all the broken pieces into form. The art is just a physical arc of that, but I really try um, to counsel and foster that internal process as well while the art's being created. And so with the Astros project, we have for each participant, there's an invitation to journal for 30 days. And they're broken up into each week has a different focus. And we'll have a conversation every week to discuss what came up that week. Um, and that in accordance with the creation of the artwork is, I think, so important because although there's no financial exchange for any participant, it's totally free to everyone who's accepted into the program. There is a commitment of this work and this effort of exploration and this openness to really allowing something new to come from those ashes. And, the metaphor is strong. It's like it's happening physically and emotionally. And so at the end of those 30 days, there's the gathering privately with the family and whoever they want to invite for friends, and there's the unveiling of the art and um, a closing um, account essentially of what they've learned and where they want to go from there,
Mhm.
and having that be a tangible placeholder. Everybody gets one of these journals, special little it's got the logo. But it's a special place where all of these thoughts can always they can return to these intentions. And it's there in the art and it's there in their hearts and it's written by their own hand in this journal. And just for them to have involvement in some capacity also with the process, I'd like to share um, the progress of every individual that participates as a way to inspire others, of course, and that's a huge part of it. Um, and so everyone that participates can also witness everyone else's journey and be able to share their own and also receive others. And and then to look forward to the gallery a lot of people are really nervous about public speaking, and that's something also that the sense of purpose allows them to transcend, and it's not this big formal talk about this and that and it has to be perfect. It's about sharing your heart. And we've conducted so many gatherings where the most timid of people became so brave because they're not alone. They're not only supported by people that want the best for them in their journey presently, but they're able to connect to that sense of courage and love within in a much stronger way. And it's been amazing to see people just transform really, from timidity to bravery.
Mm.
And And so, for anybody who'd like to learn more about this, my contact information's on the website, and um, feel free to reach out. And then for donations, we'll be able to start receiving donations in February. By the time people hear this podcast, I'm sure. Uh,
Fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, and that's all through the website too. There'll be a form, and all donors will be updated on everyone's story, and they'll get personally sent the closing statements of everybody so they can really see how their contributions are changing people through this work, and they'll be able to see, images of the artwork, and be invited to the annual gallery.
Mhm.
And there's a symbolic artwork that was created. um, it's very special. There's a number of people that offered the remains of the remains after the artwork was completed. They said, take the rest of my loved one and create beauty with him
Mm,
or her.
mhm,
Um, and so there's this combined medium that is sacred and reserved for these additional artworks that are meant to be ongoing pieces of that symbol
mm,
and that representation of we're all one in this game. We're all common in our destiny and common in this intention to grow, and that combining of those ashes is just such a profound representation of that. And so I was able to create this drawing of a rose, which is kind of the symbolic piece of the foundation. And I made prints of it that will be available for every donor of the program.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So that rose is created from the unification of all of these different ashes that were
Right.
donated. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that symbol. I was going to ask you that and you just answered it. So
Hmm.
thank you so much, Ian. I feel like this is really rich, and what a beautiful way to help people transform and to bring beauty um, to this challenging process that is death and dying and grieving and rebirth. So
Hmm.
thank you so much for your art, for the work that you do through all these different phases, and it'll be really exciting to follow the journey of the ash rose.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's an honor. Absolutely an honor to share, and excited for this year, and just seeing who will help, who's gonna who's gonna bloom.
Yeah, wonderful. So the website again, will you give that to us?
Yeah, it's theashrose.org.
Theashrose.org.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time and your heart, Ian.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for listening. You are a vital part of this podcast. You are why we are here. Let us close today by placing a hand on our hearts and a hand on our bellies, feeling our breath move through our bodies. May we feel connected. May we be at peace. May we be love. As we breathe, let us acknowledge that in this moment we are, in fact, alive, and this is a miraculous gift. Let's bow our heads gently to our hearts. Thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for doing something healing and kind in this moment right now. We give great thanks. We give great thanks. We give great thanks. And it is done until next time. May you walk gently out in the world and be gentle and loving with yourself. Much love from my heart to yours, and bye for now.